Yes, let's do Salah, Chloe. It's going to rumble on. Apparently, the transfer window. I'm going off Chris, who's going off Sky Sports. So yeah, I've not.
It's either Thursday or sometime in the future.
Yeah,
that's all we know.
It's Thursday until they decide. Until the people who own the league decide that we'll just open it again to sign Salah. Apparently, Thursday is the closing of the Saudi Pro League transfer window, which means we've got a few more days left of them presumably pecking away at Liverpool's heads over this one. It threatened to derail, I think, the good vibes toward the back end of the window. Obviously, Gravenberch coming in great. We'll talk about him in a minute. But yeah, the Salah stuff it'll loom until the window shuts at least.
Yeah, it will. Now, I've sat here for a good several days now saying it's never happening. You're not taking him. But every single day that it goes on and that transfer window is still open, I still get worried because it just takes an outrageous bid for them, for Liverpool to sit there and say, well, we can't turn that down because we won't get that in a year's time. And that is my worry. If they just don't come to us with another bid, that'd be great. But the numbers floating about, once it's 200 mil, Liverpool, I'm not saying they should, but Liverpool might look at it. And it also just disrupts everything. I mean, the entire fan base is on its knees. They just keep going, even though Liverpool have said outright, no, it's not happening. They had all the time in the summer to do this. If you would have put 200 mil on the table down before Jordan Henderson and Fabinho had left Liverpool would have looked at that and Liverpool would have had a decision to make. But you've came to us in the dead end of a transfer window on transfer deadlines. When the Doku who we were looking at years ago has gone to one of our rivals and title challengers over there. There's no other right wingers in the world that could compare ever to Salah at this moment. And it just tries to cause disruption. But hopefully, he'll stay at Liverpool. We've got through the first hurdle. There might be a couple more to come. Let's hope there's not. But it was boss seeing him, just get on with life and score as well. It's great to see that.
I just think we shouldn't have rotated him in for any days off until Friday. To be honest, when you went to London last week or whatever, and it's like, I know you're having a great time looking at all the Egyptian relics in the museum and stuff. Like, what are you doing in London, really, lads? You know what I mean? Like, no days off for Mo, no international duty, no nothing.
It was like when Ross booked all those dentist trips and then basically told us he got a new job. It was like, brilliant. Hi Ross. You're right. I think it's one of those where someone just going like, nick all his clothes or something, so he's only got Liverpool gear. You know what I mean? He's got no excuse. He can't go anywhere. He can't leave the house for a bit. Yeah. So it's the obvious question, and I think this is what caused the upset, because obviously, Dan, because you guys were at the coalface on deadline day, I was doing a 3-4 hour drive and I was getting the updates via WhatsApp for you guys, but it was the fee thing that made it complicated, because we know that money talks, and there's going to come a point, and we know how Liverpool are structured in terms of like they do need to sell to buy. Every football club pretty much needs to do that, by the way. But I think what happened was they went 100 million to 150 million, and then it was 150 million, and then there was rumours of 175 million. I think the problem was a lot of people went, if it gets to 200, I'm saying yeah, but then it was like
it would never get there.
Yeah. Well, what if there was 200? Oh, well, I've not.
300.
Yeah.
Got to start with a 4.
And that's it. There's a fear that Liverpool, because it was very unequivocal. All the Northwest journalists were saying, Liverpool have turned this down. They consider the matter closed, and they're like, well, the Saudis don't consider this closed anyway. They're gonna continue to bell. They're gonna continue bell Salah's agent, lads. Let's see if we can put another 20 million on. I think Sky Sports milked it. Because
you
can
say that again.
Yeah. Because it was the only remotely interesting thing happening on the day, which then exacerbates the fear and blah blah blah. It was more. There was more. I think there was more made of it on the day. I'm not saying that Liverpool won't deal at some point, but I'm pleased that they didn't just get blinded by the figures, because it would have been very easy to take 150 million quid, because 150 million quid does a lot for a team like Liverpool. So yeah, whoever was responsible for it, and I don't want to say it was who may or may not have been responsible for that. I don't know, what was your thoughts?
No, absolutely. What it was the biggest story in town, wasn't it, for deadline day, which is why mainstream media ran with it and ran with it and ran with it again. But Liverpool made...
How many ex-players can we get their opinions?
Exactly,
to say we think
if I see what Paul Merson thinks about Mohamed Salah leaving Liverpool again, it'll be too many times, because my word, who's that?
Normally they repeat like every 30 minutes or so. I mean, we were repeating every 5 minutes about the Salah story.
Chef getting encouragement from somewhere.
Where are they getting the encouragement from? Is it FSG?
We don't know where they're getting
or
the
is it
encouragement
Salah's camp themselves?
I watched that Merson thing live, and he went through the whole interview with Merson, was like, nah, he's too good, yeah, I want Liverpool, blah, blah, blah. And then he went, at the end, he went, so do you think he'll go? And he went, I think he will, you know. It's like, nothing you've just said fed into that. He obviously just went, what's going to get me more on yeah, absolutely.
And it worked. He was everywhere. I went to the toilet down there and seen Paul Merson's face in the mirror. It was heavy, like, honest to God. But you know what? You're right. From a footballing perspective, obviously, I've had time to sort of weigh it up and sort of assess the different options. From a footballing perspective, on deadline day, there was not a world whereby you can afford to let Mohamed Salah go. Of course there isn't. But from a business perspective, which is what our owners are often criticised for purely being businessmen, which is what they are, of course, they're not bothered about football or soccer, as they would call it. From a business perspective, there is a price point whereby you go, probably going to have to accept that. Yeah. And that felt like if it had have reached the 175, 200 millions, then that's when I would have been panicking. And obviously midway through the day, we knew about the hundreds of 150 rising. That did feel as though you quite easily just could reject that, because that's daft. It's a lot of money, of course it is. But at that point in the window, with no capabilities of replacing him with anybody, you just get more problems.
It's still normal money, though. And it's not. But you know what I mean? Like 100 to 150 million is not stupid money for Mohamed Salah.
I agree.
You know,
Casado fell over a ball ever since he's joined Chelsea, and he's 150.
No, but had it got to 200 later on in that day, I think we've got a serious problem on our hands at that point. I just do. I think at that point, FSG and them sort of people have to look at each other and go, because I know we had a conversation about sort of Champions League, and that was sort of the proviso of it. We'll keep Salah because that guarantees Champions League, essentially. But at that point, you go, well, we'll take the 200 million now and risk still getting the Champions League. You really double down on your cash then, don't you? Yeah. So I'm just glad, well, that decision never came about. It still might, of course, between now and Thursday. But up until this point, that question of do you take 200 hasn't arisen.
You know, I have seen a lot of the Caicedo stuff was a PR move. Horseshit. There's some guy chatting to me on holiday. He was going like, do you think it was a PR move? I was like, I'm sorry, you don't break the British transfer record and then not sign a player as a PR move unless you're looking for negative PR, you know what I mean, deliberately, which is mental.
This is not me bidding on something on eBay out of spite. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's another story for another day. Chris's eBay spite is the stuff of legend. But there is a degree of this, Chloe. That's a huge... the vast majority of this is a PR move, because they've been told, Liverpool have told them, we're not selling at any cause, but it just keeps the conversation going, because the biggest players in the world and all the European transfer markets now closed, so they can't really, they're not likely to buy anyone who's really good for the bit. But letting everyone know, like going out with a flourish, maybe Liverpool do deal on him at a big amount of money, in which case you've got Salah, and if not, you've let the world know. And also, you know, in the Billiton Newcastle game, happening to try and destabilise one of your, one of the biggest players on the planet ahead of him playing against your other team, it was probably no bad thing, but there's a lot more at play than just the buying of Salah. There is just something to, you're telling the world that it's not a retirement league, even though in reality it is. It's you saw the size of that news.
Yeah, it is a case of they will just go and get the best players in the world, and they don't care how much it costs, and that is a worry for the rest of the leagues. The Premier League is deemed the best league in Europe. Well, these are, and they're going to come to use. And look, Gabri Veiga is another person to look at. He's been deemed, one for the future, unbelievable prospect. Nearly went to Napoli. All of a sudden, is Saudi Arabia. We'll offer you an incredible amount of money. It's just the start of your career. You should be going to a team where you can be the main man. You should be able to play at the biggest height. And he's going to Saudi Arabia, where he's not playing in the Champions League, which for me is the peak of football. And it just goes to show they do not care the stature of Liverpool Football Club. Like, it could seem actually quite, audacious to come over to Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp, and turn around and say, nah, we're going to take your best player. It shows that they just don't care. They'll come after whoever they want. It's also feelers out for next season, because Salah will probably go then. I believe that. I think this is the last season that you'll see, Salah in Liverpool Reds. And look, a deal might be struck before Thursday for that to happen next summer. It might be a case. But yeah, I'm still going to worry till then, especially considering I was sat there with hardly any signal at all, and all I got was a message from Chris saying, I'm not gonna lie to you, Chloe, I'm really worried about Salah leaving Liverpool. And here I am
on purpose.
Here I am absolutely freaking out beside a pool for you, and my entire family then, I was like, oh my god, and my entire family were going off the railings. So yeah, nice one to Chris for that. Really made my Monday unbelievable.
eBay spike.
Friday even. So yeah, but also on that, when it comes to the likes of these players, you mentioned there it has other effects. If Salah is 200 mil in the summer, what the hell how much is the person you're getting to replace him then? Yeah. Because Chiesa's the only one coming up in my mind. He's done his ACL before. He's not at the highest point, but here you
Straight
go.
To Arsenal, mate.
Here's 80 mil because we know how much you've got, and also the price that they're going to raise the transfer window with is ridiculous.
So what? Okay, let's just have this conversation. Few questions. Is this Salah's last year as a Liverpool player, Dan Club?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Chloe?
Yeah.
Chris?
Probably.
Sound. What is the price at which you deal on Mo Salah?
250.
Now?
Whatever the deal is
happens,
done.
Next summer, I would take that 175 we were talking about.
Chloe?
220.
I'd probably look for around the 150 mark. The bid that they made, if it's an achievable 100 plus 50 for a 32-year-old, is probably enough for me.
Okay, because I think it's somewhere in between. I think if you're forcing Liverpool to accept the bid, and Liverpool are very strong because obviously he's got another year on top of this season on his contract, maybe it starts to weaken it a touch next year perhaps. And I just wonder whether you can deal. I think Chloe's point here, whether it's in the next few days, it don't matter, because you can strike a deal at any point during the season. You just can't actually bring the player in, can you? About whether they do a deal for next summer at some point beforehand. Now, we've talked about it already. What's the smartest thing for Liverpool to do here is going to be the really interesting talking point.
Got it. Time down to a new contract. When they've stopped talking to us after Thursday, extend this fucking deal, give him a little pay rise. Get that fee up.
Yep. And this is the thing. This is why I went higher
really
than you all.
400 grand a week, 500 grand a week, whatever it is.
For 1 year. This is why I went higher.
Add 2 or 3 years on top.
Okay. But then we're committing ourselves to too long of a contract with that wage. And if it doesn't have to come, we're tied in.
It's coming.
Either way.
The bid's coming.
But if it doesn't, we'd hate that. Only 500k.
I don't know what people would hate on this anymore, Dan, to be honest. Like, you know what I mean? Because there's people who are like, well, what are they doing not accepting 200 million? But and then it's like, well, why would they? Oh yeah, you can't win. I think they should sort of deal out. Well, because I don't think his value is going to be higher in the summer than it is now. I think you could get 200 million for him this season, but I think you're right. I think it's more between 100 and 175-ish, in that bracket, which is mad to say there's a bracket somewhere in the midst of £75 million.
Just a big bracket.
It is a big bracket.
I go higher because I know who we're dealing with, and I'm going to rinse you for absolutely every penny that you have.
There is something.
I don't care. 150 is getting you this right leg for me right now. So
Gives that oil rig.
Season.
Gives that oil rig.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
That pipeline, please. Yeah. There is a point on this. Is that's one thing. So like. They want Salah and De Bruyne as the next superstars to come into the league. But if there's a pecking order, it doesn't matter who's a better player. It's Salah's a bigger draw than De Bruyne. It's so known. So Liverpool have got that power in that regard. Is that at some point they're going to want Salah, and that could be over the next 10 years. They'll take Salah at any point into that league because he will be a draw, whether he's literally hobbling around on one leg or whatever at any given point. So Liverpool have got that strength, and there is a strength as well, I think, because of the Fabinho and Henderson stuff, where. Okay, all's well that ended well. We've managed to replace both of them and actually pocket a little bit off the top as well. So, okay. But I don't think we took silly money for either of those. And I think with the gift of hindsight, when Caicedo becomes a £115 million player, I think you probably dig in for 50, 60 for Fabinho just for shits and giggles. Hopefully that emboldens them to play a bit of hardball, because worst case scenario, you know, you just keep Salah. You've got Mo Salah playing for your team.
All day on deadline day, Dan will know this because we did a bazillion videos together. I was saying, do a deal for next summer, just do a deal for next summer, don't do it here right now. I think and having now considered the position, I still think that's maybe the right thing to do. But I've also got this feeling that it doesn't matter what you get for him, because it's just one more player in for you. Because it's like buying a house, isn't it? You know, we're great, the market's really good. My house is now worth £500,000. Fuck, everything's worth £500,000.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I get 200 million for him. Well, Arsenal want 200 million for Saka.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually do me any favours having all that money.
Yeah,
it actually doesn't make any difference whatsoever, almost, unless you can buy first.
Yes.
And that's why you wouldn't do the deal now. Because if you buy in June and sell in July, then you're all right. That's the smart thing for Liverpool to do.
The other thing on top of this is Mo Salah can play in that league until he's 42. He's that good. He's at his peak condition right now, and he's 32. He can play till he's 40 in that league, like he just can. So you're buying the biggest player in world football for for exactly what they're after. And on top of that, he'll be there for the next 6-7 seasons, because he's not going to go down. He's your big focal point. It's not just 2 years that you pay him for, it's the next 8 or whatever off us.
Exactly, yeah. And look, the thing with Liverpool need to be, we get confused on this as well, that that's all a lot of like, well, what do you get? You sell him for 200, who are you getting? We'll go and get Mbappe. He's not going to go get Mbappe. Don't worry about that. Liverpool are going to go and replace him. Yeah, I know.
Literally, yeah, that was my first thing.
Liverpool are going to go and replace him with a 40 or 50 million pounds player from the Dutch league, or from Portugal or whatever. But that's I'm by the way, I'm fine with that. Just go and get someone. You want to go and get Mohamed Salah, age 23. Liverpool I don't think need to be going and making. I don't think you necessarily need to make a huge wave with this one. But what you get the opportunity to do is this is Coutinho 2.0 for me. We're going to need to replace Van Dijk before long, and we're probably, Alisson's got years because he's a goalie, which is helpful, but the Robertson thing as well, and maybe another. That kind of money is a transformative impact on what we do next. So as far as like I don't think we're going to need to buy huge volumes of players. I think we've got a decent number of good footballers, but if you can take him and you go and get a young lad who's ready for his breakout season, adding into the in the midst with a settled Diaz, Jota, Gakpo, Nunes, Gordon, and co, then that's absolutely fine. But if you can go out and get who's Guardiola next summer, who are the big players that are going to be moving, if that puts you into that market, and we weren't in that market this summer. We weren't in that. Well, technically we were with Caicedo. That's where we've got to be smart with that. So I agree. I think it's a very fine balancing act between what point do you deal with the most value, but when's the best time for the deal to be struck, and again, who are you getting in to make that happen?
If we could sign all of our players before we sell Mo Salah, so then we don't get diddled out of money, that'd be
that's the only way you can do it. I think the thing with this is it feels like there's a line drawn in the sand by Jürgen. Mm-hmm. That was the big difference for me on deadline day, and him doing that, press conference at whatever it was, 9:30 in the morning or something, saying no, he's staying. Like, if you now go against that and your manager, this isn't I've had a chat with the player and he wants to move on type of stuff, no, we're done. And if you sell him behind my back, I think you've got a major issue with Jurgen Klopp, and that might be the thing that means we don't deal by Thursday.
It's interesting to get it, because this is the thing we never know. Again, talk about the Coutinho situation, is that it wasn't for a while that it came out, because again, people hated FSG 5 years ago as well, and 10 years ago, and all that kind of stuff. Everyone kicked off because of how Liverpool dealt with it, but it turned out the understanding was that we
Jürgen
all thought that Jürgen
people
thought Jürgen wanted to keep him and FSG wanted to sell him. When it was the exact opposite. Klopp didn't want someone who wasn't pulling towards the team, and FSG went, tough shit, mate. We're not getting bullied in the transfer market, so we dig in, and then that was the sensible thing. It would be interesting to see what happens of this in the future. The good thing is, like, Salah is just such a professional that he will just crack on. He's a star. He knows he's a star, and I think the team starting well will be helpful as well, because he can see a pathway towards one. Maybe leave on a high. Can we challenge for the title? Can we challenge for European? For European honours? Can I say I've then won everything at Liverpool, and then I get to bow out, and he gets his big procession and all that kind of stuff? He'll want that, and he deserves that as well. So yeah, interesting to see what comes of that. But yeah, I do feel this is very much like, it's kind of the best for all parties in some regards. Salah eventually will fade. And you don't want to be caught with a guy who could have been worth 150 to 200 million pounds. So it's one thing to let Genie go for a free and to let Bobby go for a free, but and then to lose money on Mane. But then this is something else.